Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Newell, and I am the Vice President of the Advertising Club of Toronto. We are a volunteer organization that's dedicated to industry events, much like this one, that educate all of us on the updated merits of each media. And we also create social events that in the normal world bring us all together. So the AdClub's revenue from these events actually goes to funding university scholarships and college scholarships that support the next generation, as well as being the biggest contributor to NABS, the industry's own charity. So keep in mind that NABS has suffered during this pandemic by our industry, the case count doubling throughout the pandemic. So if you have the capacity to contribute in any way, whether that be through the media auction or by donations, please do so. And please help NABS and your really good colleagues. And to that end, we thank Snapchat today for the title sponsorship of the Digital Day Fireside event, for helping to make the world and our industry a better place. So thank you, Snapchat. Now, Digital Day is the jewel in the AdClub crown. In a normal world, you'd be joined by 600 of your colleagues today. And yet today's virtual event is by no means, it is certainly much more intimate, but it is as important, if not more so. I think we can all admit that over the last 18 months, every facet of our world has changed. The pandemic and the globe's ongoing pivot to treat and deal with the disease, the global rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, which has made diversity signaling just inadequate against a demand for tangible action, as well as in digital media, the lockdown spawning a vast surge in e-commerce. So our industry and each one of us are obviously vastly different from who we were in 2019, and all of that transformation will be discussed in today's Fireside Chat. Now, I spoke earlier about making the world a better place, and the gentlemen I'm about to introduce have been doing that for decades. Now, gentlemen, sit tight and prepare to be embarrassed because I'm about to gush about you both. So, Boris Cho seems to have somehow conquered time travel because he spends more time improving the greater good than the rest of us. So he is my tireless colleague on the AdClub board. He is the co-chair of the immensely popular Student Day, which has allowed hundreds of students to both learn about and network their way into this industry. He is a member of the NABS board, as well as a frequent industry podcaster. And apart from all of this goodwill, he's also the Senior Director of Strategy leading the Midas Exchange Agency. So when I say that, I think it's fair to say that everything that Boris touches turns to gold, much like Midas. Now, yes, big introduction, and why not? It's worth it.
I think that's all the time we have. Thank you very much for joining us, guys.
So another big introduction for this man too, because I don't know if he knows how many times that I've mentioned Kevin's name in the course of my career in the very best way possible. But in July, he kindly sat down with me to help me prepare for the AdClub's Challenging Systemic Racism panel. And after Kevin's piece on LinkedIn called "I'm a CEO and the only Black person in the boardroom," he became the go-to executive for think pieces on diversity. And I asked him if it was exhausting. And he said to me, turned to me and said to me very simply, "If not me, who?" And I think, quite frankly, that both defines Kevin as this incredibly quiet hero, as well as highlighting the appalling lack of diversity of people of color at the C-suite level, both in the Canadian advertising industry and Canadian business in general. So Kevin Johnson, CEO of Mediacom, is not only a great and tireless leader, he's a great man. And quite frankly, he has the greatest throaty chuckle of anyone in the advertising industry. So gentlemen, I leave you to a conversation that will no doubt prompt deep thought, great pathos, and perhaps some Kevin Johnson inspired and promised fireworks today. Thank you both.
Good grief.
Wow, what an introduction. I hope that's recorded because I don't think anybody would believe me if I ever try to quote that. But appreciate you, Amanda, and everything you do for the industry. So thank you for putting people first and giving us such a great introduction. Also, I want to thank our sponsors at Snapchat for facilitating this event today. This event would probably not be possible without them, so thank you very much to Snapchat. And most of all, thank you to Kevin for spending an hour with me. I know how hard it is to get your time, so really appreciate you and being able to get this opportunity to ask you a bunch of questions. And in fact, we've had an overwhelming response when we put it out there on the internet or the interweb that we're looking for questions to ask, and we got a ton of them. So we try to filter through some of the questions that we thought would be quite relevant to today's discussion. And we're going to encourage those joining us to populate some questions in the chat box. And if we do have time, we will get to them. So first and foremost, the big question of the day today, Kevin, is how are you doing?
Look, I'm with the Mr. Boris Cho. So I mean, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for the invitation, by the way. Any opportunity for me to hang with you is time well spent. But look, I'm good. Thank you for asking. Obviously it's a crazy time. But for me personally, it's been, okay, here's the situation. This is what we need to deal with. I'm here with you on a fireside chat. I got a 9-year-old behind me doing some online schooling, and that's the way we're rolling today. But we still have some strength, so it's good.
I got a 5-year-old somewhere in the condo. I can't find her, but that might be a good thing for the next 45 minutes. So for the sake of timing, we're just going to kick it off, and I'm just going to fire you some questions, and we'll see what kind of discussion we can develop from it. So I'm going to just fire off questions that have been submitted, and the first one that comes to mind here is, with everything going on around the world within the industry, what has changed for the better? Like in terms of in society and workplace, like what has changed for you?
Oh, wow. That's a big one. Okay. A couple of things. One is, I think it's important that I pick off some of the pieces that Amanda had put in her intro. So let's talk about diversity first and foremost. If I look at the number one or some of the leading changes that I see throughout my career to this point, definitely from my perspective, the look of all the faces that I see across our agencies, our partners, our vendors, all of the organizations that make up our industry. What I see today in our faces has certainly changed in terms of where they are from, the color of their skin. All of these things have been really positive. Look, I'm still only one of the few Black individuals in the boardroom, in my environment. That still needs some work, but definitely we have seen some change, and we expect more change in that regard. Boris, one of the things that I really like about what's happening today is the dialogue that's happening. And I was telling someone this the other day, that when you and I grew up and started out in this industry, there are two areas that we knew we weren't going to talk about at work. One was politics. We got hushed real quick, right? Second one was religion, which was probably just as close. And you could probably add just any type of conversation around racial stereotypes and things of that nature. And I think those were, for us growing up, were kind of faux pas, like you shouldn't go in those areas. Now, it's amazing that leaders and organizations are actually expected to have conversations about the Trump effect, the elections, what are we seeing, healthy friction around diversity and how it feels to be in my skin. Those conversations are happening, not as much as we want, but they're happening, which I think is a massive difference in what we saw growing up.
I couldn't agree more. I think that given the circumstances and all the social movements that are happening lately, the conversations are happening in every corner of the room these days. I find that whether they're happening organically or people are forced to kind of talk about it. I'm just happy that the conversations are out there and people are engaging. Um, I grew up as an immigrant. I moved to Canada here when I was 5 years old, and I just wanted to be a regular Canadian kid. You know, play hockey on the streets, eat hamburgers, French fries. Just live that Canadian lifestyle. And it wasn't until I was older I realized, why my parents hadn't embraced it. Um, they wanted us to hold on to our culture, right? Never forget where we came from and who, the hard work that they've gone through to get us to where we are today. And I think that has made me realize that these conversations are okay to happen in a boardroom setting or in the workplace. I think that it can only impact positive change, right? If we're not talking about it, change is never going to happen. And I couldn't agree more with you when you said that we're making significant change. There are strides and there are people and organizations out there making a difference. So I commend them for giving us a platform to sort of feel a little more confident and inspire others who walk the same life as we did to one day say, hey, I see Boris and Kevin doing what they're doing, and I would love to do what they do. So for me, I just appreciate anybody joining that conversation.
I think the two things that just quickly on that we need to where we need to get better is, I think the appetite for bringing in more diversity now is at a good place. We can still get better, but outside of us bringing in these very vibrant new faces that also have a new way of thinking or a different experience, we know that the problem is once we get up into the higher we go, the less diversity we see. And so we need to address this. We need to fix it. And so we can see the next Boris Cho and the next Kevin Johnson in 10 years, 20 years down the line.
Agreed. As co-chair of the Student Engagement Committee at AdClub, I can confidently say that the future does look bright. It looks really diverse. There's a massive talent pool out there looking to either embark the industry or elevate their presence. So my advice to them is to never give up. Just continue being yourself, and that's the best way you're going to get noticed. Which actually brings me to my next question. Unless you had something to add there.
Can we ask those that are listening right now that they would actively participate in bringing in some of those new prospects, new individuals coming into our field? Obviously, there's a reason why they're on this call. This is of interest of them. Let's put them to work. Yeah. Guys, let's circle together as a community and as an industry, and let's connect with some of these great new talents that are potentially ready for an opportunity.
Couldn't agree more. Which was my second question. My follow-up question was, what advice can we give to organizations in particular to help move that change forward? And I think you sort of nailed it. Just approach it with a new perspective. Like, we're in media and advertising, and we rely on perspective, right? So we're not going to get different perspective if we don't have different kinds of people in the room. So I think one of the most successful trait of any organization are the ones who are approaching solutions from a diverse lens, right?
Absolutely. Look, we'll tackle this quickly on a couple of different fronts. One is diversity is needed because it's the right thing to do. And if you need more than that, it is proven, empirical data states that the more diverse your organization is, the more successful you are. And I think a leading reason to that is exactly your point, especially in our industry where we have agencies that are being tasked with creating innovation, great ideas, creativity to the consumers that we're reaching out to. And the last time I checked, Boris, our community, our audience, our population of Canada is one of the most diverse in the world. So therefore, in order to create these ideas and campaigns in order that resonates with these individuals, we too need to be coming from many different areas, many different backgrounds. And so this to me is like a quick conversation that doesn't need a lot of effort. We should just do it.
Should just come naturally. Like I can speak to the I'll speak to the Asian community that we make up about 20% of the Canadian population, right? If you had removed that 20%, what would Canada look like economically? Or it's kind of hard to believe. It's kind of hard to think about that when you really put it in the perspective. But all these diverse backgrounds, they support Canada's economic growth, right? It's a growth strategy to bring immigrants to Canada and have them thrive, right? So my advice to organizations, please consider a diverse pool of talent because it only strengthens our ability to impact change.
And Boris, one of the things that I hear a lot from organizations or from senior leaders are, where do I go?
Right.
And so, first of all, we should be talking about putting numbers on the type of candidates that we're seeing. For example, I'd like the candidates for this particular position to be 50% of them be from diverse backgrounds. These are things that we need to start implementing in our hiring practice. But specifically, there are groups out there that represent the BIPOC community that you can reach out to, whether it's on LinkedIn and other areas that can help you tap into this community to find the type of talent that you're looking for.
Well said. Well said. So keeping that momentum of change, I got to ask you, Kev, like, how will the agency workplace look like post-pandemic? Right. I think we all have a pretty clear indication and understanding of what agency life was like before the pandemic, and things are going to change in my opinion. But I want to know from you, how will agency workplace look like for I guess for Mediacom in particular, and what you would like to see other agencies and organizations do?
Look, maybe we are not going to agree on this topic, and we can have a bit of a healthy debate afterwards. Look, based on what we need to provide our clients and partners, recognizing the type of industry that we're in is very much driven by relationships and connectivity. I do not see a world where we have our people working from home exclusively moving forward. For me, I believe that the agency, whether it was pre-COVID, during COVID, or even post-COVID, was always a hub for people to come back to the office, connect into the larger group, share ideas, create new ways of thinking, and build culture, which is so important to our industry. And so for those reasons and many more, I think a post-COVID world will have more ways of looking at remote working, and it will change, but I see it very much needing to revert to some of the things that we've experienced before in the past, and get back to the norm.
That's a great answer. I'm not going to sit here and say that this industry was perfect before the pandemic. We've got a long way to go in a lot of respect, but what I am concerned about is the way we communicate with one another. I think agencies thrive when we have that collaborative spirit, when we can get people in a room and really dive into the craft and the work. I find it really challenging to do that over a screen with several different people. It's hard to gauge, right? So I'm really looking forward to getting back into the office and being surrounded by people. Yeah, like hands up in the chat if you guys agree. But there's just so much more we can do as an agency group or as a team when we're together, right? So as agents of client media, we're just agents and we're not agencies, right? That's the way I see it. And we got to go back to figuring how to get back.
And think about the supply chain. How are the various sales groups managing now that they can't connect face to face with us agency folks? Like, how are they managing? It must be tough, especially for someone like us who's been in front of Zoom all day. That's difficult. And I was talking to someone who has been in our agency just for a year now, and I said jokingly to her, I'm going to look at rush hour in a whole new way. I'll be thank you, bring it on. No complaints coming here. Like, just get me downtown.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, things are interesting times, right? There's so much uncertainty, but I do think that there is a majority of the industry that are absolutely looking forward to getting back to the office, and high-fiving each other, celebrating the big wins, the small wins. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Joey's. I'm coming soon. We're coming back.
All right, we got a question here. So I guess it's time to get a little programmatical, I guess, so to speak. I got a digital question here. How much time and discussion does your team in particular give to the pending cookie-less future? So this is a hot topic right now. I think you can't go onto any marketing sites or LinkedIn without looking at an opinion or people trying to figure it out. So how much time do you guys put into that conversation? And are Mediacom clients asking about this?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, we are far down that path in terms of not only preparing for, but beginning to execute around the cookieless future. When I think about what we've been doing, ironically, the team we were on a panel and having a discussion around demonstrating examples of work that we've done specifically in this area. And so when you share that question, I think about clients like Dell, where we're already testing. We have tested what execution looks like in the cookieless world. And so we've been working with some great digital partners in order to begin to walk our way through that. So yes, we've been thinking about it. Yes, we've been talking about how we will manage that world. And our partners like Dell have already been collaborating with us to do that. The only other thing that I'll say on that is, Boris, this industry has seen other very large shifts in behavior and things that we had to deal with as an industry. And so, and I think we've been very successful at managing change. Change is actually so much of our industry when you think about some of the large changes that have happened over the last 20 years, and this is just one of them. So we will engage this like we engage other factors that have come through time, and we'll overcome it like we've had in other instances as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a saying in our industry that every day is never the same, right? This industry can change overnight. Really, it can. So I think one of our strengths is that we're incredibly adaptive, right? We're strategists at heart, and we're always looking at what could go wrong before it goes wrong. And I'm not saying a cookieless world is going to be wrong. I think it's just, like you said, another change, another challenge in our industry that we just face, right? And I think it's going to challenge planners and executioners that to think a little differently, right? But from a client
Yeah,
perspective, this must be coming up from your clients, right?
for sure, and that's why I used Dell as an example. I mean, we're having that conversation across the board with existing clients that we have today, and we're also sharing our thoughts with potential new clients around how we look at the cookieless future. You know, I think the thing that we need to be careful of is when we talk about the cookieless future, it's almost like Armageddon. It's like apocalypse. Um, Everybody needs to chill. Like, let's calm down.
Yeah, I agree.
We we see what's in front of us. We know that there are challenges. There are things that we need to overcome, but we actually we have the time to prepare for it, and so we should be preaching calm to our clients and talking about ways to overcome that. So I think our feeling at Mediacom is one of confidence that we'll be able to work through this.
Beautiful. Speaking of change, interesting question came in, and I wanted to pose this to you. So, why do you think media agencies were so hesitant to step into retail and e-commerce until recently? And even though they have added this to their service offerings, um, why are we so laser focused now on one channel media? E-commerce is a cross-functional approach and omni-channel. So, why only offer one perspective to clients?
Well, I don't necessarily agree um, with the question. I think when you think about it, ecom for the most part over the last 5 years has been what we would all consider an emerging channel.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time has grown substantially pre-COVID and with COVID in terms of how consumers have looked at and viewed e-commerce, that has significantly changed. So, I think that there are a number of wins that have been happening based on this question. One, it has been an emerging media, and with all emerging media, agencies and organizations, buyers and sellers have all been getting themselves up to speed, not only in terms of skill and knowledge, but in terms of talent.
Right.
And so that's one thing to recognize. And when you think about the marketing community, organizations, brands, they too have been getting themselves up to speed. And in many cases, outside of the pure play e-commerce brands, you're still seeing anywhere low single digits in terms of e-com adoption and growth. So I think we need to take a look at the full context. I think agencies now with the growth and the question and the need developing over time, they are definitely are ramping up because again, it's all about the consumer behavior. And I do love thinking about myself as a practitioner and as a person. Kevin Johnson, the person has been purchasing stuff online in a way that he never thought he would. I'm very I love touching, feeling, trying on, and but now, I mean, e-com is just a way of life for this household. So it's still very new.
Right. In my perspective or in my opinion, e-commerce has always sort of lived with the client side, right? And it wasn't up until recently, I think, that clients and brands who are very aware are understanding that the value of media agencies can bring to their e-commerce strategy. So media's role is to really own that consumer journey, right? So it's only evolution that we need to start taking a look under the hood and really figuring out new solutions for clients to utilize their platforms and how to increase sales and consumer intent, right? So owning the consumer journey, it only makes sense that clients raise their hand and say, what can my media agency do for us, right? So that's great. Um, let's see here. There was another question here that I did mention in housing, which has been sort of a hot topic, I guess, for the last maybe 5 years or so. You gotta kind of gotta tread a bit carefully when talking about this, but with, with why? It is a competitive. There's competitive landscape there where you don't want to give away your secret sauce or whatnot. But with many companies in housing these days, at least optically, it looks like there are some considering in housing or have been doing it for a while. How do you see the role of media agencies evolving with this competition, so to speak?
Boris, the conversation about in-housing is kind of like the real estate market when it's going to fall out. I've been hearing that for like 25 years when I bought my first house. Look, there are going to be clients out there that it actually makes sense to take their data and their business in-house. There's scenarios that it absolutely makes sense, and so when that is the case, I expect an agency partner to be like, yeah, it makes sense. Let's talk about how we do this together. Here are some of the watch outs. Is our counsel moving forward, and we'll continue to provide the partnership that we have typically provided.
Agreed.
Simple conversation.
As agents sorry, go on.
Sorry, there are instances though that the benefit that an agency provides, a good agency, is having a really good view of the system, the total system, and being able to leverage, optimize that system, find insights because it's all in front of them. And so naturally it makes sense. Sometimes pulling that piece out of the system that the agency has view over is actually going to do damage. And then you get into things like when you bring things in-house, you still need to find the talent. How do you provide career development for those individuals? How do you provide technical expertise for those individuals on an ongoing basis? There's a whole other side that it's only after that you've gone through this in-housing task that the true ramifications and questions begin to come up on what you've done, which is in-house. So in-house makes sense in certain circumstances, but agencies should still be providing support and help if that decision is made.
That's a great answer. As agents of client media, it's our duty to give them benevolence, right? To give them the same advice we would give anybody else, right? And be transparent about the value that agencies bring. And I think the difference between in-housing and agencies is the level of resources, right? When you're working with an agency, you can tap into endless resources. There are so many people and so many tools and platforms that we bring to the table that just aren't available from a cost perspective or whatever it may be in-house. But I think that there is a world where both can live together and work in harmony to achieve one common goal, right? And that is to improve the well-being of the organization, right? The client's health, business health.
Absolutely.
Great answer. All right, I wanna kind of shift the conversation a little differently. I know we have a lot of people tuning in. They're young and they're also a bit older. Recently, I've been talking to a lot of people about the subject of ageism in our industry, right? And I feel like there's a lot more people talking about it now than they were probably 5 years ago. I want to ask your take about ageism in this industry. What do you feel? Do you see it as a problem?
Good question. Look, I think when we take a look at and when we think about what we need to eliminate in terms of stereotypes, bias, definitely, I think everyone has either seen or been a part of issues around ageism. And so, is it there? Have we? Is it present in our community? Absolutely. Especially when we think about our part of our currency is creativity and ideas. There is this perception that there is no way that innovation or creativity can come from the older range as it relates to age. I mean, I think you and I know that that's nonsense. We have to continue to combat that. So I think there's two sides of this. One is making sure that we as leadership within our agencies eliminate any of that, specifically call it out by name. I think the second part of that is the industry as individuals. So Kevin Johnson is probably at an age now where that could affect him. I would like to think not, but I'm still relatively young, Boris, right? But in all seriousness, yes, I'm at an age now where that bias is certainly in my view. I think as an individual, I need to make sure that I'm constantly leveling up the areas and gaps that I see within my own skill set that needs to be addressed. So to be clear, there's two parts for me. One, from an organization and leadership perspective, making sure that we eliminate that. Two, the perception that we may have a skill set or a gap in skill set that we need to level up in, i.e. digital, because typically I've seen ageism most prominent as we talk about digital expertise. And so Kevin Johnson needs to make sure that I'm leveling up and eliminating any barriers or obstacles that nonsense can take place. So I think there's a two-part. Most recently, and again, I'll speak for myself because that's the best person I can point to, is I identified within myself, Boris, that I need to be more articulate and more knowledgeable as the idea and conversations of MarTech increase. And I'm making sure that I can sit in a room, be look at it at all perspectives and be knowledgeable as MarTech gets more and more spoken about within the environment that I'm in. And I think we as individuals all need to continue to make sure that we're leveling up in terms of our skill and knowledge.
Right. Yeah. It's a tricky subject, but I think you bring a lot of clarity to what organizations need to do. I think everybody plays a role within the industry, right? Experience matter. It really does. It brings a lot of value to the table. I have a hard time talking about ageism because I'm kind of like, I look young, but I'm not that young. But I'm always thinking about, succession, right? I'm always thinking about, what's next for Boris. And to me, I always go back to the
28 Boris?
What's that?
28?
Me?
I mean, you still got some, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 37, and not full disclosure, I'm 37, guys. I know I look very young, but
Right.
when I think about ageism, I always go back to legacy, right? And how I want to leave this industry when I do choose to leave the industry is how I want to be perceived and the contributions I've made to make a positive impact. And when I look at you, Kevin, I respect what you do for your people. I respect what you do for the organization and your clients. You're very well respected. And I think, you're going to have this very positive legacy when the time does come when you choose to exit. I don't think that's going to be anytime soon. But yeah, can you kind of speak to, like, is legacy important to Kevin Johnson?
Woo. You know what? Look, I'm going to talk my feelings out a little bit because I think,
Yeah.
this is unexpected, but here are my thoughts. For so long, I've thought about legacy and making sure that when I leave the organization, it's in a better place than it was given to me. Number one. And also making sure that that the individuals could say, yeah, I knew that Kevin Johnson guy and he helped the agency in these ways. Legacy is important to me. It has been important to me, but I want to be clear that I do the things, I help where I can help, not because of legacy. Because at the end of the day, I will go on, you and I will move to Florida and, snowbirds and watch grandkids and all that stuff. Well, we'll do that stuff. And I'm not sure how much at the end of the day they're going to remember Kevin Johnson. But if I can come back and see a Black CEO at an advertising agency, if I can see a woman of color in a position of power, if I can point to a number of individuals, executives from the Asian community that are working, and we're seeing just a totally different landscape of people, then I can come back and say, actually, I was a part of that. I have part in that. Tell my grandkids, like, you see what's going on here? Granddad had in that. So that for me, that's legacy for me. And I do think it's important, but it's about the work. And you and I will not see it. We'll only see 10 years from now, 15, 20 years, the legacy, the work that we're putting in now to make our industry different.
The only thing I'll add to that really is, Kevin, as long as you continue to inspire those like myself and this new wave of generation coming in, your legacy will live on through their work as well, right? I do believe that you make an impact, and so thank you very much on behalf of the industry. Is
this my retirement party? Like,
Stuart didn't tell you?
Are you trying to tell? I'm not going anywhere, Boris.
saying you're going anywhere. All right, let's lighten the mood a bit, okay? So pitching has been a very different sort of environment these days, right? And Mediacom, you guys are on a hot streak here. And so I've got to ask, without giving away your secret sauces, like, what are you guys doing differently? Like how do you adapt to like virtual calls and really getting a sense of like how clients are feeling and delivering your sort of your proposal? Like, what's that like in during the pandemic?
First of all, shout out to Mediacom. Woo! Let's go, baby. Look, listen. It's tough. Like, in all seriousness, I tell people all the time, it is a great time to be a leader because it's tough. Hopefully, I'll never see another pandemic ever. But for some reason, I've been blessed to have this opportunity to live during a pandemic. And so, and be a leader through a pandemic and be a leader through social change as it relates to Black Lives Matter. So to see this all happen in front of me, to see tears, to see anger, to see things that typically we don't see, and then have to do it on this and pitch. I think there's two things that I can take out of the success of what I have seen within the agency. One is moving with agility. So what needs to change in order for you and I to feel like we're in a boardroom? How does the language change? How does tech affect what do we need to eliminate in order to make sure that we're controlling tech? Because tech can get out of hand sometimes during the meeting, right? So being really pragmatic and methodical about eliminating what can happen during this time on a screen that you really need them to build a connection with you. How does that happen? Do we use music? Do we have a moment for some comedic relief? What happens in this time? And I think some of the success that the team has seen has been because they've been really intentional about, from the time we say go, what are we going to say? How are we going to say it knowing that we're not in front of them in a room?
I think it's a lot of people are thinking about exactly what you were talking about. How do we make that human connection over a screen, right? And it's been difficult, but I think it's really up to the team, the people you bring together is really what's going to sell, right? And I think that's where Mediacom really shines. And I don't want to make this the Mediacom show, but because I do sort of have a visibility looking through the window, you guys have invested in great talent, and you guys understand exactly the value you bring, and you do a great job of monetizing that. So congratulations to you and the rest of the team.
Please just confirm and let the people know that I had absolutely nothing to do with this segment, but I will shout out my team because they have worked in tough times. So, and I appreciate all of them.
We've got time for one more question, so I'm going to take this one out of the Q&A here. And so, is it important for media employees to have a strong social media presence? And can this content impact your perception of them in a professional setting? So the question is it important for media employees to have a strong social media presence? Like, given, some of the posts you've made on LinkedIn, I think it captured the attention of a lot of people. I'm pretty vocal on social because I believe that everyone needs to have an opinion. what value are you to a conversation without one? So my answer to that is I always encourage those to have an opinion or a social media presence as long as it's authentic, right? What about you?
I agree. I think so. I want to make sure that we're separating the two things here because I think they're very different. One, I think that you need to have a working practical knowledge about these platforms. And typically, the easiest way to do that is to be on them. You're using them every day. And so the other side of that question is, how much do I want to be a part of these platforms as it relates to my own personal life, right? And so for me, I do believe in the former, that you really have to have working knowledge, and obviously based on your feedback, you do too, we do. But I'm on the personal side, I will never be all into these social platforms sharing because there is a personal side to me that I would like to keep personal. And so I think LinkedIn as a leader is 100% important to be in. I enjoy it. I connect because that's I think it's a great tool for our industry. But I would not put any pressure on anyone to have their personal presence on a platform. Fortunately, it's at our own discretion. So make it what you want it to be.
Yeah, proceed with caution, be authentic, and just understand that you're putting it out there, right? So it could either do you good or do you harm, depending on how vocal and strong your opinion is. But I love your opinion there. So it looks like we're running out of time here. That just flew by. I've got like literally a list of 50 questions here. I wish I could ask you, but for the sake of time and letting everybody get back to their everyday, on behalf of the entire AdClub and industry, thank you so much for joining me and spending this hour together. And did you have any closing remarks, Kevin? Do you have anything to say to our audience today before we pass it on to Amanda?
Listen, I think, again, thank you to you both for the invitation. I think there are a number of things that we face in our community and our industry today. Many of them are inherent to the business that we're doing, like the cookieless future that we need to address, and we're doing. And so those have always been for us a part of our DNA as an industry. How do we overcome this new technology or this new thing? We are great at that. But are we great in the things that are new, but in the social realm? How are we going to address diversity? How are we going to address the concerns around ageism, gender equality, all of these things, like right in front of us? This is the story that needs to be written, the end of the story that needs to be written, how we adapt and change, if we adapt and change to these things. So keep pressing them on for the industry. I thank you to you both for the work that you've done around this, and I'll continue to support where I can.
Beautifully said, Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us. And Amanda, over to you.
Thank you. And I thank you both for a discussion which did not disappoint in terms of offering those fireworks that Kevin had promised us. I especially, I know that as Canadians, we're very kind and nice and sweet, but I like the fact that there was a little genuine debate over the idea of in-housing. And also when you were talking about e-commerce, I like that Kevin disagreed with you, Boris. I thought that was a lot of fun. So that being said, what a massive discussion on ageism and diversity and agility and legacy. It was wonderful to behold. So thank you both for that. Thank you again for Snapchat for being the title sponsor of today's session. As I said, in terms of what you're doing for the industry, what you've done for AdClub, what you have done for NABS, and what you've done in terms of delivering scholarships to university and college students, do know that your sponsorship has made a massive difference. So thank you, Snapchat, for that. I will point you all to the second Digital Day session. The next session will be more of a panel and less of a fireside chat, and more industry related, as opposed to this one, which was certainly more issue related. So thank you all for participating today. Again, June 10th will be the next Digital Day session, and I look forward to continuing fireworks and watching Kevin Johnson telling his Floridian grandchildren about his legacy. Oh, that's going to be adorable.
Hey, my kids are young. Let's not get too excited.
Thank you all, and thank you both. Thank you everyone who attended today. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.